Hey, what's up and welcome to Game Positive, an Xbox podcast. That's right, an Xbox podcast. Now, you might be wondering why the slight change to the name, so let me take a quick second to explain before we dive right into this megaton of an E3. When I started this show, I wanted to kind of be in the anti-fanboy camp, a camp that I still consider myself to be in, as I think all platforms have great experiences for the people who are deep inside of those ecosystems. And I figured being a general gaming podcast, or at least labeling myself as one, was a good way to kind of keep that expectation. But after selling my PS5 and my PC being converted into a World of Warcraft / Age of Empires box, I think it's a bit disingenuous to market myself as a general gaming podcast, as almost all of my nostalgia, passion, and knowledge lies with the green team. And a little inside baseball, but putting the word Xbox in the name of the podcast really helps with getting people to kind of stumble upon my show through SEOs and different algorithms. Now, I won't be suddenly turning into a console warrior overnight. I won't be bashing other platforms or anything like that. And when big news happens from the red team or the blue team or the Excel spreadsheet machine team, then I'll be happy to share it on the show. So in the near future, there very well could be some side quests over in PlayStation Nation. But for right now, welcome to Game Positive, an Xbox podcast. Now, how about that E3 showcase? That's right, everybody. Xbox did have its E3 showcase. I had extremely high expectations heading into the show. And to be honest, they definitely met those expectations, but they did not exceed them. Something that I will talk about a little bit towards the end of the show. All in all, they revealed 31 games. 28 of those games are coming to Game Pass on day one, and 18 of them have some form of exclusivity, ranging from full exclusive to launch exclusive, which is a massive shift in the narrative that we've been used to hearing when it comes to Xbox. Now, it is kind of crazy, in my opinion, that they were able to hit that expectation, have that many games revealed, and have so much left in the chamber to be able to fire. If you listen to my pre-show or my prediction show, you know that I started that by saying that they have built the biggest cannon in the world. I use that as a metaphor, and that they were going to shoot our expectations in the face. And I still believe that, but somehow they managed to meet my expectations while having 15 of their 23 studios not show up at all. So there is a ton left in the tank, which is great, because one of the reasons why E3 showcases in general are, I don't want to say they're not good anymore because they're fantastic. It's still my favorite time of the year. But the reason why this one in particular is not jam-packed, and the reason why they're not shooting every shot they have at once, is because the industry's kind of changed. The E3 is not the only time of year when big reveals happen. After E3, in just a couple months, you have Gamescom in Germany. At some point between Gamescom and December, they're going to have an XO conference where they've had huge reveals in the past. And then, of course, the Game Awards, which in recent memory, it feels like every Game Awards, the Xbox has some big reveal, arguably the biggest reveal of the show. At least for the last 2 years in a row, they've had the biggest reveal of the show. So I think that the reason why they have so much left in the tank is because they plan on hitting us with that biggest cannon in the world several times between now and the end of the year. And I'm extremely excited for that. Before I jump into every single thing that they announced, I did want to do a couple of quick shout outs to some of the stuff that came out of other shows, because there was some other really cool stuff. So first of all, one of the only games I've actually pre-ordered, and part of the reason why I haven't pre-ordered a lot is because literally everything they showed is coming to Game Pass, which is mind-blowing, which I'll talk about a little bit more as we go on. But one game that I absolutely pre-ordered was Guardians of the Galaxy, coming from Eidos Montreal, that was revealed at the Square Enix show. That game is a little bit different than the Avengers game. It's single player only, which, in my opinion, I think that is pretty cool. And they kind of made a bold decision, letting you only play as Star-Lord, which just so happens to be my favorite Guardian of the Galaxy. So you won't hear any complaining from me. But where it's a single player game, they actually pretty cleverly incorporate the rest of the Guardians into the gameplay. So every face button on your controller is going to open up a sub menu that lets you select a specific Guardian, and they have different ways that they can interact with your attacks, performing all kinds of insane combos. It looks like it has a really, really awesome story. It's definitely pulled from the comics, not so much the MCU version of Guardians of the Galaxy, which could be off-putting to someone who might not read the comics. But I'm super excited for this game. I have the deluxe edition pre-ordered. Thank you for incorporating kind of a lower tier deluxe edition with a steel book and some nice goodies that I can get for a relatively good price instead of going from base edition to $300 Captain America statue version that the Avengers had. So I appreciate that. I have my deluxe edition pre-ordered. Also, I wanted to shout out some of the stuff from the Nintendo conference. I'm not the biggest Nintendo fan, as you probably have heard by now if you're a frequent listener, but I know a lot of Nintendo fans really, really love seeing Breath of the Wild. Metroid Dread actually looks really cool after I spent some time digging into it. It's kind of I don't want to say horror, but it's definitely a darker tone for a Nintendo game, which is very cool. It's not something that they typically do. So I may actually pick that up. And then a sequel was announced to my absolute favorite Switch game of all time, which is Mario plus Rabbids. Like, I swear to God, that game is extremely underrated. Ubisoft announced a sequel to that, which looks really cool. Speaking of Ubisoft, they had a pretty awesome conference as well. The Avatar game from Massive Entertainment, the people that brought Division, that was shown off in kind of a teaser trailer. Looked really, really cool. That team is absolutely awesome at environmental storytelling, and the world of Pandora is such a huge mystery to a lot of people, as there's so much shown in the movie behind the action. It would be really cool to see if they can kind of use their environmental storytelling prowess that they've shown in Division in an Avatar game. Really, really cool. Plus, a lot of people don't realize this, but there's I think 2 or 3 more Avatar movies that are coming in the near future, which will probably their releases will probably coincide with the game's release. So you might not be super excited for it now, but once those movies start rolling out and everybody starts heading back into theaters, once COVID hopefully dies down, I think that will be a very cool thing for Ubisoft and the team at Massive. There's some other stuff that really caught my eye as well from the other shows, but I won't spend too much more time on it because I know why you're here, and that is for the Xbox E3 Showcase. So let's get right into it. All right, so the first thing that I said would happen is they would start with Halo, and they definitely did not. They actually started the whole show off with Todd Howard on the stage, revealing I guess people are calling it a teaser trailer. I don't know if I would call it a teaser trailer, because I would consider the very first time they showed Starfield to be a teaser trailer. This was just a trailer, like a cinematic trailer. And it really kind of brought me from being interested in the concept of a Skyrim or a Fallout in space. It brought me from that place, which is where I was before E3, to this is my most anticipated game outside of Halo Infinite, and I'm thinking about covering it extensively on the channel, on the YouTube channel specifically. In fact, I am almost finished writing a complete breakdown of the trailer with all the hidden Easter eggs in it, because there is a lot of stuff to pull out of that trailer. So yeah, even though it didn't show gameplay, it really did a great job of setting the tone for the universe, setting expectations for the art style of the game. And yeah, it was just really, really, really cool. Everything was in engine, and it was on the Creation Engine 2, which is a brand new iteration of their engine, their old engine, the Creation Engine, the one that was used for Fallout 4 and stuff like that, Fallout 76, which, that game had some glitches, but it shows something that they were completely revamping the entire engine specifically for that game. And I think there is some Easter eggs in the trailer that may show you exactly why they might needed to have made some big additions to the Creation Engine, enough so to to actually, I guess, give it a sequel with the Creation Engine 2. But I won't quite dig into that here. I'll save that for the YouTube video, so make sure you check that out in the near future. That game, Starfield, is a Game Pass day one launch title and a Xbox console exclusive. So any game that has those labels, I'm going to mention that, and you're going to hear me say that a lot because it is actually insane how many times that came up in E3. Almost everything is a Game Pass game and a Xbox exclusive in some way, shape, or form. Next up, we had Stalker 2. Stalker 2 was teased at last year's E3, and it was given a pretty meaty trailer at this year's E3. It lasted about 4 or 5 minutes, and it kind of showed a lot of story beats as well as actual gameplay. It was kind of like that in-engine gameplay where you don't see a HUD or anything like that, but like from watching the dev diaries after the fact, they're saying that it is representative of what you can expect to see when you actually play the game. Now, Stalker 2, for anyone who doesn't know, is a very kind of Metro style game. If you know, like Metro from 4A games, actually 4A games, the people that make like Metro, Metro Last Light, Metro Exodus, that studio was actually founded by ex-Stalker devs, like Stalker 1, which I believe came out in 2007. It was a PC game. It's a game series that's based on an award-winning book called Roadside Picnic, which is kind of a Russian apocalyptic book similar to Metro, which was also a book. And yeah, it looked really, really cool. It almost looks exactly like Metro, in my opinion. There's like different human factions that seem to be at war with each other. It seemed like they're using more real guns instead of kind of like this makeshift stuff that Metro, the characters in Metro use. And there was a lot of like, one thing that happened that was really cool, which I can't remember exactly what it was, but they did explain it in better detail. There's like these anomalies that happen outside that kind of cause these like wind or like these gravity distortion fields. And it had one of the aliens walk into it and just gets sucked up and just totally explodes. And then there's a artifact or a tool that you have to use to scan your environment to try to find those, which looked like a really cool mechanic. They talked a lot about using all kinds of different mechanics so that it's not just a corridor shooter, which really, really shines in the trailer. And it's supposed to be open world, and which is very Metro Exodus-y. All in all, I think it was a very strong visual showpiece, and it looked really cool. And of course, just like almost everything I'm going to talk about, which is I'm going to still do it because I need to nail this home how insane this is. Stalker 2 also coming to Game Pass on day one and is an Xbox console launch exclusive. Next, they showed a gameplay trailer for Back 4 Blood, the sequel, well, pseudo sequel to Left 4 Dead. It's from the same studio that made Left 4 Dead, Turtle Rock Studios. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe that Valve actually owns the intellectual property for Left 4 Dead, like that game title and its characters. And I believe maybe even it's like special infected, like the hunter and the boomer and stuff like that. I don't know the exact details of it, but I think it's called Back 4 Blood and not Left 4 Dead 3 because this game isn't being made by Valve. It's being made by 2K. And yeah, I think that's why there's a slight change there. But it does look exactly like Left 4 Dead, and it is using the same developer. So Turtle Rock is making this. The trailer showcased some PvP action, which they may or may not have already announced is making a return, but this definitely shows it. It showed some new infected that looked really, really cool. It is coming to Game Pass day one, but it's also a multi-platform title, so you have to make the choice if you want to spend like 90 Canadian dollars, 60 American dollars, or just get it in Game Pass. So choice is yours. I would probably choose Game Pass. That's where I'm going to be playing it. It's launching on October 12th, but there's also going to be a beta in August. So let me know if you guys are hopping in the beta. I definitely am going to need a squad for that game. Next up was Contraband. Now, I predicted in the pre-show that we would see the project from Avalanche that was codenamed Project Typhoon, and that it would be revealed as a co-op open world game, and it is what happened. They did reveal it, and it is a co-op open world heist game. it was a trailer that was more of a title reveal, similar to the Starfield reveal however many years ago. So there wasn't much shown in terms of what the game is. You had to kind of learn all of this stuff after the fact in the press release. So it's an open world co-op heist game. They didn't talk too much about the setting or the environment, but it seems it's supposed to take place in semi-modern times on an island of some sort. So it could be similar to Just Cause in terms of its setting. Not 100% sure, but what's really interesting, outside of it being a Game Pass Day 1 title, is that it's actually exclusive to Xbox. So Avalanche is a third-party developer who has a history of working with Bethesda. So it's potentially something that maybe had been worked out before the merger or the acquisition. Maybe Bethesda was publishing this game, and then because Xbox bought Bethesda, now Xbox is publishing that game. That's kind of what I am anticipating. So it doesn't necessarily mean that like some type of Xbox Game Studio acquisition is in the works, but yeah, it's an exclusive game coming to Xbox from a third-party developer, which is not something that you see too often. Avalanche Studios, by the way, like I said, they did work with Bethesda in the past. They worked on Rage 2. Outside of Rage 2, they did make the Just Cause series, and recently they actually have a small kind of splintered team at Avalanche that had released Second Extinction, which also came day 1 to Game Pass, which is pretty cool. Next up, they showed Sea of Thieves. I predicted that Sea of Thieves would be here, which it was. So bravo to me. That's a point. But I also predicted that it wouldn't just be kind of your typical seasonal update with like a new battle pass, that it would be something bigger. I predicted that it would be a bigger expansion with a new story arc and like new environments or new places to go, something that would reinvigorate the game. And that is exactly what happened, except I would say that they blew away my expectations, because this was the most mind-blowing part of the entire E3 conference for me. They announced that there's a new expansion coming to Sea of Thieves coming next week, which is insane, called A Pirate's Life, which is going to star Captain Jack Sparrow from Disney's Pirates of the Caribbean. It's a crossover with Disney and Microsoft, and it's not just Jack Sparrow. The Black Pearl's there, Davy Jones is there, the Flying Dutchman is there, Calypso is there, Gib is there, and that's all I showed in the trailer, but who knows what else is going to be there. It's going to be a series of tales, like tall tales, I believe 5 of them, new environments, new enemies, new mechanics. It's amazing, and I was completely mind blown. They said it's an original epic storyline. Like in the trailer, you could see NPCs boarding your ship that you had to fight, which is completely new. They were supposed to have a gameplay reveal of it today, but it ended up being a gameplay trailer. There's actually a deep dive coming on Sunday, which I can't wait to check out. But yeah, I am a massive fan of Pirates of the Caribbean. I think that the original trilogy, like Curse of the Black Pearl, I'm forgetting the name of the second movie. Curse of the Black Pearl, at World's End is the third one. Dead Man's Chest is the second one. And I think that trilogy, I'm not going to say it's better than Star Wars, but it's in the same category as Star Wars. For me, it was the MCU before the MCU, even though it's kind of like similar timelines, but I love those movies. If you haven't seen them in a long time, definitely recommend giving them a watch, especially before the expansion comes out, because they are fantastic. I seriously think that Pirates 1 is like the perfect adventure movie. So yeah, definitely check that out. Next up, there was some Game Pass additions, specifically Yakuza Like a Dragon was coming to Game Pass today. I predicted that Persona would be coming to Game Pass, Persona 5, and that didn't happen, so I was wrong there. Next up, they showed Battlefield 2042. I also predicted that this would come to Game Pass day 1, and as of right now, it is not. That doesn't mean that it's not ever going to, because it clearly will with EA Access at some point, but it also doesn't mean that it's not coming at launch, because if you remember, Outriders had a ton of different media outings, ton of different reveals, ton of different live streams, developer streams, trailers were shown at different shows. And that game wasn't announced to be a Game Pass game until almost 2 weeks, I think, or maybe a little bit longer before actually launching. So it's not looking likely, but it's not technically impossible. So keep your eye out on that. The gameplay trailer that we did get was pretty awesome. It showed off some really huge scale battles. It looks unbelievable if you watch the re-upload in full 4K. 100% recommend checking that out. I still am a little bit on the fence though, because they did take away the campaign, but I'm still like I'm so close to being pushed over the edge to buy it. It's really going to come down to what my friends decide to do. Next up, we had another trailer for 12 minutes, a very unique game where it has an insane voice cast: William Dafoe, James McAvoy, and Daisy Ridley. It's a game where you have to keep reliving the same 12 minutes over and over again, where something traumatic happens. I won't spoil it if you haven't seen the trailer. And every time you relive those 12 minutes, you have to try different things, look in different places, and find new clues before the next reset happens to try to figure out how to get out of this situation or try to figure out why the situation is happening. It's a very clever premise. And every time I see the trailer, I am kind of leaning more and more towards the fence where I think they're actually nailing this, because it's definitely a tricky thing to pull off from a gameplay perspective or game mechanic perspective. But it is being published by Annapurna, which if you haven't like watched an Annapurna movie or played an Annapurna game, literally every single thing that they do is like basically perfect. They pick and choose what they get behind meticulously, and they almost make no mistakes. So I'm very excited for 12 minutes. And guess what? This will be a shock, but it's coming to Game Pass on day one, which is insane. And it's coming on August 19th. Next up, they showed Psychonauts 2. I predicted that it would be at the show, and I predicted that it would have its release date reveal, both of which were true. There was a gameplay trailer that I think kind of acts as a launch trailer of sorts, because it kind of showed all the stuff you'd expect a launch trailer to have and had to release it at the end. So I'll give myself double points for that, because I did predict a launch trailer. That game is coming to Game Pass day one, and it's releasing on August 25th. I think that it was probably the best trailer yet. It's a very creative game that you would expect from Double Fine. It's a very original world, nice and colorful, which makes it a great addition to the Xbox first party. As we know, like some of their games are a little bit more serious outside of Sea of Thieves. But yeah, I would also recommend watching the extended E3 video that came out today, because there was a kind of a big deep dive with Tim Schafer where he went over a lot of the intricacies of Psychonauts 2 and all the ways that it kind of differentiates itself from the original Psychonauts. Very, very cool stuff. After that, Pete Hines of Bethesda fame took the stage, and he revealed that there are more Bethesda games coming to Game Pass, bringing the total of 30 games from Bethesda on Game Pass, which I think is basically the entire library outside of like extremely old licensed games that will likely never come, or like very old games in general, like Elder Scrolls Arena, or Elder Scrolls like Redguard, which I think both of those are free on the Bethesda launcher. So if you really want to check those out, you could. The ones that they announced were Dishonored, Death of the Outsider, Doom 2016, The Evil Within 2, Rage 1, which is extremely underrated. 100% recommend checking that out. It's a 360 gem in my opinion. And Wolfenstein 2. Those are coming to console and PC. There are some games that are coming to PC only though, which are Arx Fatalis, which was the original Xbox game as well, and Fallout 1 and 2, which are completely different games in terms of their perspective and gameplay versus Fallout 3 and 4. And then also Fallout Tactics. All of that stuff was available as of the streaming, as of the E3 showcase. So if you're listening to this, they're available for you to download now. So check those out. He also revealed the release date for the Doom Eternal console Series X and S enhanced mode, which will give you 4K 60 with ray tracing, as well as a 120 FPS performance mode. That's going to be dropping on June 29th. So very, very soon, a week after the Sea of Thieves update. And then they started talking about their game as a service games. First up was Fallout 76. He revealed that Fallout 76, despite what some people think of that game, is actually one of the most popular games in all of Game Pass. And I think that's for good reason. Sure, it had a rough launch. They kind of missed the mark on some technical stuff as well as some of the story beats and how the game was presented. But after jumping in recently and playing it myself, as well as being aware of how absolutely incredible the community is, I think that game is 100% worth jumping in, especially if you're a Game Pass subscriber. There's a lot of things that really separate that game from other kind of shared world shooters or shared world looters like the Destinies of the world, the Borderlands of the world, stuff like that, where it's 100% worth jumping into. And unlike those other games, where it is kind of a game that has been around for, I think, 2 years now, 2 or 3 years. All of the DLC that they've released up to this point is actually 100% free. So you can jump in. You don't have to spend money on DLC. You can get through all the new stuff. The first major update they did, Wastelanders, is actually woven into the original kind of campaign. So it's not one of those cases where you have to kind of get through all the bad stuff to get to the new good stuff. The new good stuff is woven right into the, I guess, quote, bad stuff, even though it's really not that bad. And it's FPS boosted, so you can play it at 60 FPS on a Series X, which was the final thing I think that game needed to be 100% worth checking out. They also revealed that Elder Scrolls Online had just released its new Blackwood expansion, which is the expansion kind of based around Oblivion. It deals with like Oblivion, not necessarily the game, but like, you know, like Oblivion is the kind of Elder Scrolls version of hell, and all of that stuff is incorporated in this expansion. It takes place in Blackmarsh, I believe, which is the homeland of the Argonians. So there's a lot of cool swamps and stuff like that. They revealed that there's 18 million players, or over 18 million players and counting, which is pretty staggering. MMOs is one of the most volatile kind of genres of games that you can kind of enter in as a game developer. There is a insanely big graveyard of failed MMOs. In fact, there's only really 2 that I can think of since World of Warcraft came out that have actually survived World of Warcraft, and that ESO is one of them, the other one being Final Fantasy 14. So it's very impressive for the team at ZenimaX Online to be able to keep this game going, and it shows no signs of slowing down. So there'll be tons of content to come in the future. And on top of that, it has gotten its Series X and S enhancements as of last Tuesday. So it's running at 60 frames per second, although I'll let you know, you do have to actually enable that in the settings. I launched it after like the update came out, and it was still running at 30. So I was a little bit freaked out, but if you dig into the settings, you can enable performance mode, and that will bump it up to 60, and it's amazing. The music was always great. The vistas and the visuals were always great. The fact that all the quests are voice acted was always great, but that 30 FPS really sucked me out of the experience. And now that it's running so smooth at 60, I'm jumping back in, and so are a lot of my friends. So if you are as well, let me know. We can maybe clear some dungeons and stuff like that. Next up was Party Animals. Another, I haven't said in a while, so let's start getting back into it. Game Pass day one and a Xbox console launch exclusive. If you've played the game Gang Beast, this is very, very similar to that. It looks like a significantly more polished version of Gang Beast, but the gameplay is basically the same in concept, where it's a kind of party brawler game that's very physics based, where you're throwing people around the environment. There's different hazards and stuff like that, and you're trying to eliminate everybody. The trailer was absolutely hilarious, and that game is coming in 2022. Next up was a huge announcement. Hades is finally coming to Xbox. It's a Game of the Year winner. It's from the studio that brought you Bastion and Transistor and Pyre. It's run by Greg Kasavin, which was one of the top tier reviewers way back in the day at GameSpot. And they are just constantly pumping out very, very, very well received indie titles. And it's been a long time since they've been back on Xbox. With Bastion on 360, that was, I believe, their first release. But since then, there was kind of a rift between the two companies, it seemed like. But they're back in the flow now with Hades coming this August. This is the other game that I pre-ordered. Didn't want to say it at the beginning because it's kind of a little bit of a surprise, but that game is also coming to Game Pass day one. I pre-ordered it because the team at Supergiant does fantastic work, and it's a fantastic game, and I really wanted to have a physical copy of it. It will probably sit on my shelf and never be open. I'll probably still be playing this on Game Pass, and that game is coming on August 13th. Next up was Somerville. This is a game from a brand new studio called Jump Ship Studios. This is their first game, and it's a studio that was actually founded by the co-founder of Play Dead. Play Dead's the studio that brought us Limbo and Inside, and Somerville, you can definitely see that those two games are inspiring this game. The only major difference, at least from what the trailer showed, was that you're basically running left the whole time instead of running right the whole time, like in Limbo and Inside. But the atmosphere and the eeriness, that stuff comes straight from Inside, straight from Limbo, and you can definitely see where its roots come from. It also had a very noticeable step up in graphic fidelity, and none of that came at the cost of, like I said, any of the atmosphere or any of the kind of tone that you expect from a Limbo or an Inside. That game looks really, really cool, and that's coming in 2022. Next up was the Mac Daddy, the big title that everybody wanted to hear about, and that's Halo. Before E3, I predicted that there would be a relatively small kind of single player showcase just to make sure that people are aware that the graphics are significantly improved. I said that would happen because, like I said in the previous podcast, there's like a certain budget that teams have to create these type of E3 kind of marketing trailers or demos and stuff like that. And they use the majority of the budget that they would have allotted for single player exposure at the last E3 last year. So I didn't expect to see a huge chunk of the campaign. I expected the majority of the focus to be on multiplayer, which had yet to be revealed up until E3. And on this one, I'll give myself a pat on the back because I was 100% right. They did show a brief segment of the campaign, which was a really, really cool trailer, in my opinion. It showed a little bit of a deeper glimpse into the story and how it relates to Cortana, but they didn't really kind of spoil too much. There's still a ton of mystery to solve when you jump into the game this holiday. But multiplayer was heavily showed in a multiplayer trailer, and then the following day, there was a multiplayer deep dive that went into a lot more detail. And I'm pretty sure Halo's back. If you look at the metrics for the trailer, it has like closing in on 2 million views, I believe, with like a 99.9% like to dislike ratio, which is very, very, very good, let's just say. They showed a lot of different weapons. They showed some of the different maps, some of the mechanics in action, like the grappling hook and some of the other equipment that they had. Big Team was on display. They talked a lot about customization. They revealed that there's absolutely no loot boxes, no expiring battle passes. And at launch, the first season of the game, like the first battle pass, is free as well. And just in general, the whole multiplayer portion of Halo Infinite is 100% free to play across all platforms that it's available on, so PC and Xbox. And keep in mind, recently, Microsoft made it so free-to-play games don't require Xbox Live Gold. So you can just play this on any Xbox, any PC that it will run on, any phone probably, if it's going to be on xCloud, without having to have Xbox Live, which is really, really, really cool. I predicted that they would announce that there's going to be a beta. I even said that maybe it would be shadow dropped. They technically said there's going to be flights happening and to sign up for those, but they really made it seem like those are semi far away, not like a week before launch, but my guess went from like this week or the next couple weeks to probably August at some point. I have a feeling that it might come around Gamescom. I'm signed up for it, so make sure you sign up for it. It's going to be on Halo Waypoint. You want to kind of link your Xbox account to Halo Waypoint if you haven't already, and then enroll yourself for future flights, and that will get you access at a kind of random interval. It's not clear yet if they're going to kind of flood everybody with invites or bring people in waves. They also never mentioned anything about an open beta where you didn't have to sign up for flights. So I think if you want to check out Halo Infinite multiplayer before launch, you're definitely going to want to set up for the flights on Halo Waypoint. Next up, there was Diablo 2 Resurrected. I kind of was surprised to see this one here because there's a pretty meaty kind of showcase of it in the winter at BlizzCon, but there was a new gameplay trailer that was completely captured on Xbox, and the launch date of September 23rd was shown. This game looks fantastic. It's something that I absolutely want to play. I'm just really, really worried about it running into Halo Infinite. If Halo Infinite comes out like somewhere around September 23rd, it's pretty obvious I'm not going to be playing any Diablo at all. So that could end up being a wait for a sale type game. One thing I quickly want to say, just going back to Halo for 1 second, they never gave a specific date. They just said holiday. I don't think that means that there's potential that it could be delayed. I would be like extremely surprised if it didn't come out in 2021 at some point. What I think they're waiting for is to find out when Call of Duty is coming out. So they know when Battlefield's coming out. I don't think Halo Infinite is coming out anywhere around October 12th, I think was Battlefield. But I think they're waiting to see when Call of Duty is coming out, because they're obviously making a massive push to kind of bring Halo to the top of people's minds in terms of their gaming mind share, especially with it being free to play, releasing on Steam, and then obviously on Game Pass and stuff like that. And what they don't want to do is say, oh, Halo, it's coming out like November 9th, same as Halo 2, roo, right? Look at that connection. And then Call of Duty to come out and be like, hey, we're coming out on November 11th. And then have them be fighting for people's time and fighting for people's attention. I think they want to avoid that. So if Call of Duty comes out and says we're coming out early September, mid-September, I think you'll see Halo come back with an announcement for somewhere near the end of October or beginning of November. And then I think the reverse is true as well. If Call of Duty is coming out in November, which I expect it to, it usually comes out now around Remembrance Day. I think that will have Halo come out at some point in September, mid to late September, which is why I'm extremely worried about Diablo. In terms of my playtime, I don't imagine there being this huge crossover of people that are super excited for Halo and super excited for Diablo. I think that they kind of have their own audiences that are very far away from each other. But for me personally, I'm excited for both, and I'm going to pick Halo 10 out of 10 times. So we'll see how that plays out. After Diablo, they showed a very unexpected sequel for Plague Tale called Plague Tale Requiem. Plague Tale is maybe the biggest hidden gem on all of Game Pass. It is a absolutely fantastic game. It's visually beautiful. The audio in that game is a 10 out of 10. It just really puts you in this sense of dread with its world building and its fantastic audio. Great storyline, really interesting. I don't want to say co-op mechanic because it's not co-op, but you are kind of you had to keep two characters in mind while you're playing, which is really, really, really cool. A very good story, very good writing. It's just a fantastic game that came out of nowhere from a company, I believe Asobo, that up until that point, I think they were doing like Zoo Tycoon and like Disney Pixar Rush. So for them to bring out something like A Plague's Tale 1 was very, very surprising to me. And it was one of my favorite games of the entire gen last gen. And it's on Game Pass. So 100% recommend playing it. It is actually going to be getting enhanced for Series X and S, I believe in early July. You'll have to Google to find the exact date. They just revealed that today, I believe. But Plague Tale 2 Requiem is also coming to Game Pass day one in 2022. After that, they showed another trailer for Far Cry 6. There was a lot of stuff shown at the Far Cry reveal and then some more shown at Uplay or Ubisoft Forward. So I was a bit surprised to see it here. There was some new stuff shown in the trailer, but I think there's been enough shown with that game where they could have done without showing more here. Yeah, I have a feeling this was some type of marketing arrangement that was made a long time ago, and they're just kind of, like they probably were obligated to show something Far Cry in the show, and they did so. After Far Cry was Slime Rancher 2 reveal. That game's coming to Game Pass day one and is actually an exclusive to Xbox, which is pretty cool. The original Slime Rancher is kind of like a pseudo farming game where you have this like vacuum gun and you suck up slimes, throw them in cages, wait for them to poop, and then suck up the poop and sell the poop to buy more cages. Sounds like a really weird game when I say it out loud, but my daughter is a very, very big fan of that game, or at least watching me play it. So having a sequel come out and being able to get some more achievements while hanging out with my daughter sounds very, very cool to me. That game is coming in 2022. Next up, they showed Shredders, which is a new game developed by an actual new studio that I haven't seen before. I was kind of like, when I first saw the trailer, I will admit I was very, very excited because I thought it was a kind of revival of Amped, which was a extremely fun snowboarding game from the original Xbox. And I think Amp 3 was in the early days of Xbox 360, but it's not Amped. But they did say that it was kind of inspired by Amped, so it's not going to be like SSX where it's very over the top. It is going to be more realistic, and they explain that they actually have kind of like if you remember, Halo 5 actually had a pro team help them develop the multiplayer. Like competitive Halo players were in the studio like all the time, giving them advice and play testing and stuff like that. They're doing the same thing with this game, except they're using pro snowboarders to really nail down the physics of the snow, the weight of the border, and all the different things that you would feel while like snowboarding on different types of snow, which I thought was really, really cool. There was a pretty neat developer diary they showed today at the extended version of the E3 showcase. So check that out. That game's actually coming out this year, December 2021 on Game Pass day one, and is a console launch exclusive. After Shredders, they had a showing, another trailer for Atomic Heart. Very, very weird looking game, extremely hard to understand what's happening, but at the same time looking very, very cool. I mean, you got robots, you got gravity-based weapons, and old ladies yelling at you, old cars flying in the sky, zombies, it looked like, crash test dummies coming to life. Like, that's just the first, 10 seconds of the trailer. So it's very, very weird. No release date shown, but they did announce that it's Game Pass day one and a console launch exclusive. After Atomic Heart was replaced was an extremely impressive looking game. Very, very cool pixel art. I believe it rivals The Last Night, which was a trailer from, I think, 2 E3s ago. At the time, that was the best pixel art I ever seen, and now competing against Replaced, I'm not sure. Really just it sounds a bit weird, sorry, but the coolness of this trailer was really caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting. I was like head bobbing, like jamming out. I watched the trailer probably 10 times since it was shown at E3. It's just a very, very slick trailer for a game that looks very, very, very cool. Also launched exclusive and also coming to Game Pass day one. After Replace, there was a new trailer for an update coming to Grounded, which I did predict in the pre-show. They're adding a lot of new content. They're adding pets and companions. They're bringing back the Broodmother, which was a boss character that was in the early versions of the game. They took it out because they said it wasn't really living up to their expectations, but they're bringing it back now with a lot more mechanics involved. They kind of explain that you're going to need like very high level gear to even stand a chance against her. Pretty horrifying. Like even if you're not like an arachnophobic, the spiders in that game will still kind of haunt you a little bit. Just the sound and how big they are, and I don't know, just something about 8 legs. Just I'm not scared of spiders in real life, but in that game they're very, very horrifying. And finally, they're adding achievements, which was the one thing that I needed before jumping back in. So I'll be jumping back in on June 30th, which is 1 week after Sea of Thieves, 1 week after Dungeons and Dragons Dark Alliance. I don't know how I'm going to be able to play all these games. Game Pass just keeps on giving. After Grounded, there was a trailer for Among Us. They announced that game is going to be on Game Pass day one on Xbox, and that they're going to be expanding the lobbies up to 15 players with 3 imposters. I kind of got the impression that it was coming to Xbox on June 15th, but after kind of looking at it after the show, I think the update for 15-player lobbies is actually what's coming on June 30th, and the Xbox launch date is still kind of up in the air. I do expect it to come at some point this year, but I'm not sure exactly when it will be. After that, there was a game where I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of it. It's a Japanese RPG Eluden Chronicles, perhaps. I should have Googled how to say that before, so I definitely apologize. It looks very Octopath Traveler inspired, which used to be a Nintendo Switch exclusive from Square Enix, but it's actually on Game Pass now because Game Pass is ridiculous. And this game is also coming to Game Pass day one as well in 2022 with another sequel to this as well coming in 2023 that they announced. It's kind of a weird announcement in my opinion, but I expect if you're a fan of the series or a fan of this type of game or genre, that kind of might be par for the course. It really kind of I'm not a huge Japanese RPG expert by any means, but from my perspective, it looked really kind of like a spiritual successor to Suikoden, I believe it's called. It was an older game, I think, from a few generations ago. Again, I'm not a huge expert on this stuff. I'm like an Xbox gamer for crying out loud, but it did look really cool. And one thing that I love about Japanese RPGs on Xbox, specifically on Xbox Game Pass, is the kind of xCloud touch controls. Sorry, I hit the mic there. The xCloud like touch controls, or even if you have like uh, a Razer Nari controller or like the controller hookups, like basically playing the game with your phone on the go. Any game that's not like super fast paced or relies on like quick movements or like aiming and stuff like that. Those types of games shine extremely well. Being able to play a JRPG or put like 30 minutes, an hour into it before bed, like in your bed or, you know, when you're out and about, those games really shine for that. So having more of them on the service is definitely a big win in my opinion. Next up, there was a pseudo launch trailer for The Ascent, another game I'm extremely excited about. Cyberpunk meets Diablo looter shooter. It's top-down isometric, kind of twin sticky, I believe, from what I could see from the gameplay trailer. Of course, Game Pass Day 1, Xbox exclusive. Like, what else is new? That game is coming on July 29th. After that, they showed us some Age of Empires 4 goodness, another Game Pass Day 1 and Xbox exclusive. It looks like a very, very big visual leap from Age of Empires 3. They announced some new narrative campaigns. It looks like the campaign is not going to be like one like kind of long story. It looks like it's being cut up into different chapters, kind of similar to how they've done it in the past, but it's going to have a lot more fidelity, obviously visually, but also a lot more narrative tied into that. They showed, I believe, the French campaign. They showed Joan of Arc in there, which is really, really cool. It looks like it's going to be a really cool game, but again, it's coming in the fall, so it has kind of the risk of running straight into Halo Infinite for me specifically. Again, I don't know if the cross section between Halo fans and RTS fans is super, super big, but for me personally, if Halo comes out anywhere near October 28th, I'm probably not going to be playing a whole lot of Age of Empires 4. After that, they kind of juked everybody out of their shoes by showing an extremely strange trailer that I think this trailer literally, I mean, I personally thought it was Fable. The person I watched E3 with also thought it was Fable. And a lot of the reactions I saw, most people said, holy shit, is this Fable? It wasn't Fable. It was Outer Worlds 2. What they did is they kind of showed absolutely nothing because they have nothing. All they have is the title, which is a quote from the trailer. But yeah, there's no release date, nothing really revealed other than Outer Worlds 2 is in the works, which is kind of insane because like there's a split off of Obsidian that's obviously working on Grounded. And then a lot of the team, at least I thought, was doing Avowed. And now apparently there's another team, or maybe the Avowed team is doing two at once. I have no idea. But even if they made a clone of Outer Worlds 1, which I don't expect them to, I expect Outer Worlds 2 to be significantly bigger in scale and polish and all that stuff because it has Microsoft money involved with it now. But even if they did just clone Outer Worlds 1, I have no idea how they could make that game and Avowed, which is supposed to be Elder Scrolls-like, at the same time. That's just a massive undertaking. So I would expect that Outer Worlds 2 is in maybe pre-production. Maybe there's some people that are doing some planning and maybe some writing, stuff that is likely already done for Avowed. So yeah, don't expect Outer Worlds 2 anytime soon, in my opinion. I would say if they're superhuman, if Obsidian is superhuman, maybe 2023. Otherwise, I think you're looking at 2024 ish if they're just mere mortals working over there. Next up was Flight Simulator, which revealed another awesome crossover with Top Gun, and that the console version of that game is coming July 27th. The graphics doesn't really look like, honestly, that it's taking any kind of step down or that there's any compromise between the console version and the PC version, which is pretty insane because the PC version is basically real life. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. This will be a very big case for buying a HOTAS controller, like a flight stick controller. So I might jump right into that. My dad was a huge fan of Flight Simulator back in the day. So by osmosis, I guess, I was also a fan, and I played the old Flight Simulator. I played a lot of Combat Flight Simulator, and he had the flight stick. So it was a really cool experience. I would love to get him in the seat to take a flight with a flight stick on the Series X with the new Flight Simulator. And it just so happens to be that Top Gun is like his favorite movie of all time as well. So that's kind of the best combination you could possibly have, at least for my dad. So we'll see how that goes. Next up was a large deep dive into Forza Horizon 5. Oh, by the way, Outer Worlds 2, Flight Simulator, and Forza Horizon 5. Clearly, Game Pass day one, as is basically everything that they've showed, and exclusive to Xbox, full exclusive. So Forza Horizon 5. Forza Horizon 5, like Flight Simulator, is not a game anymore, man. It's literally real life. The way that they use photogrammetry, I've been talking too long. I'm not going to pronounce that word right. But the way that they're being able to use that satellite imagery and importing the photos into the game engine, like the individual needles on cactuses or cacti are being rendered, and those cacti that are being rendered are actual cacti that exist in that exact place in Mexico where this game takes place. Mind blowing. They had a bunch of cuts in the trailer where they would kind of have a still, like a still camera, like pointing at like some piece of environment from the map of Mexico in Forza Horizon, and it would just sit there for a few seconds. And if you showed that to anybody out of the context of E3, they would literally think that is just like a live stream of some random spot in Mexico. And then all of a sudden the cars will like drift into the frame, and you're like, oh yeah, shit, this is actually a video game, which is just mind blowing. And they revealed, again, like I said, the it's going to take place in Mexico. There's an insane variety of modes. There's actually a story campaign with voice actors that they showcase. There's going to be different kind of almost like public events in Destiny, but in the open world of Forza. Eliminator Battle Royale is making a comeback. It's going to be there at launch, which is fantastic. That's a very, very fun mode that has no business being as fun as it actually is in Forza Horizon 4. And there's also going to be kind of a custom game creator called, I believe it's called the Stadium, where you can create your own custom games that give you, it's almost like Forge mode in a way for Forza. One of the modes they showcased was a bowling mode where they had these giant bowling pins around that you would drive into and man cannons. It just looked really, really cool. And Forza has a very dedicated community. So I'm assuming you're going to see a lot of cool stuff coming out of that. And that game is coming on November 9th. And finally, the last thing that they revealed was Project Omen, a game I said would be there as well from Arkane Austin. They revealed the actual name of the game, which is Redfall. It is a co-op kind of open world vampire themed game. It seems to have kind of like a really cool take on vampires as well. Like they're very kind of mythical in nature and less like horror. Like if you're thinking like, I don't know, like James Carpenter vampires or like Bram Stoker's Dracula. It's not that. It's like a very mythical version of vampires, like something that you would maybe see in like a cartoon or something like that. So it's not like very dark and horrific. It's a little bit more lighthearted, but still really, really cool. I was kind of expecting a darker game though. Like if you read my or listened to my prediction episode, I was really hoping for like a Legacy of Kain style, like dark, grimy kind of single player, first person, like Legacy of Kain title, which this is not. So at first glance, I was a little bit disappointed if I'm being honest. But after kind of repeat viewing and listening to people like Pete Hines talk about it after the fact in some post show interviews, I'm definitely turning more around on it. The different abilities that they've showed in the trailer, and mind you, it wasn't a gameplay trailer; it was more of a cinematic one. But it was very tone setting, which I think was their goal. What they showed did look really cool, and as far as I know, like thinking back, I can't really think of any games that Arkane has made that I didn't enjoy. I know a lot of people had some issues with Wolfenstein Youngblood, but I have a feeling that was a little bit of a tight schedule, and it was kind of out of their wheelhouse as well, as they are very good at making what's called system-based design. Where what I mean by that is a lot of times games will put you on a path and they'll build the game around that path that you're going to travel down and play through the story, and it's full of set pieces and things that they expect to happen, and they really like are guiding you through this kind of story that they crafted for you to play, like kind of like a theme park, if you will. Whereas systemic game design is based completely around systems, where yes, they will curate a starting point and some story beats along the way, and obviously an end, like they're telling a coherent story. But how you get from the beginning to the end of that story is based on how you interact with the tons and tons of systems that work off each other in the game. So if you think about a game like Dishonored or Prey, there's no set path to get from beginning to end. There's a lot of different systems involved and a lot of different ways that you can approach things, which doesn't really fit 100% with Wolfenstein. So I think that was a little bit of an odd pairing to begin with. But it worked flawlessly in games like Dishonored and Prey. So I am really, really excited for Redfall. It's actually coming a lot earlier than I thought. It's coming in summer 2022. And I imagine we'll see a lot more of that at maybe not Gamescom, but I think you'll see some gameplay perhaps at XO. There'll probably be a big kind of showcase of it at next year's E3 if it's coming out later on in the summer. Or perhaps there'll be some stuff at the Game Awards. I definitely expect to see more from this game in the somewhat near future. And yeah, that's everything they showed. A lot of games, a lot of value for Game Pass customers. From now until the end of the year, they committed to having back-to-back monthly day one releases on Game Pass. There's a ton of stuff coming, like even just now, like next Friday, I believe, is both the Pirates of the Caribbean, Sea of Thieves, and Dungeons and Dragons Dark Alliance launching day one on Game Pass. A week later, you have the Grounded update. Later in July, you have the Ascent, and that's just going to keep happening every month until the end of the year. And they're probably only saying to the end of the year because they have like 3 shows between now and the end of 2021 to announce even more. They said in a Xbox Wire article before E3 that they're committed to having at least one big first party game coming out every single quarter, and filling the rest of the space out with all the other stuff that they're getting from third parties. And it's just looking insane, to be honest. One of the things that I thought was really kind of telling that Phil Spencer said, and I'm going to add a little bit to what he said because I think he was short on time and he couldn't finish the whole spiel. But he said that at Xbox, they have some of the industry's best RPG storytellers working on Starfield, Avowed, Elder Scrolls Online, Fallout 76, Outer Worlds 2, Elder Scrolls 6, the next Fallout sequel, Wasteland, the next Wasteland sequel. At Xbox, they have a ton of iconic shooters like Halo, Wolfenstein, Perfect Dark, Gears of War, Doom, Quake. There's epic racing and simulation games like Forza Horizon, Forza Motorsport, Flight Simulator, fun adventures like Sea of Thieves, Psychonauts 2, Grounded, co-op action in Redfall, The Ascent, Contraband. The key is, like, he didn't mention that many games, probably because he didn't have enough time, but that just is a perfect picture of how much variety and value you're getting out of Xbox Game Pass. A lot of people I've seen online were criticizing this show as being very, very heavy on generic FPS games, which is so far from reality that it's mind-blowing. They showed 31 games, and if you think that every single if a game is an FPS, then it's generic. If that's your mental like kind of lens that you view games through, if you take every single FPS game they showed at this E3 trailer, That's only 7 out of 31 games. The rest of the games were across the board, all genres you could think of. There's tons of variety here, tons of value with Game Pass. This is one of the biggest wins ever for Game Pass members. Only 3 of the games they mentioned are not going to be on Game Pass, one of them being Battlefield, which still potentially could end up on the service and 100% will be on the service within probably 6 months to a year after it's released through EA Play or EA Access. It's a huge win for exclusives. Of the 30 games coming out today, 60% of them are exclusive in one way or another, which is huge because the narrative for the last feels like a decade was that Xbox has no exclusives and you shouldn't buy an Xbox because there's everything that's on it you can play in other places. Well, that's not true anymore. There's so many exclusives shown here today. Even if you're not like a fanboy, it's very clear that Xbox stole the show this year at E3. The only other conference that came anywhere close to it, I think, was Nintendo, but it wasn't close enough. I think that Xbox completely dominated this entire E3. Mind you, I will admit, like PlayStation obviously wasn't there, and they would probably provide the biggest competition if all things were being equal. I do expect them to have a showcase in July, so I can't wait to see what they show there. But the key is that Xbox accomplished this with not even showing half of what they have of like in their Xbox Game Studio canon. We're going to call it a canon from now on. They didn't show Hellblade 2. They didn't show Perfect Dark. They didn't show State of Decay 3. They didn't show Avowed. They didn't show Elder Scrolls 6. They didn't show Wolfenstein 3 that is likely being worked on by Machine Games. In fact, it was heavily hinted that that's what's happening by Pete Hines in an interview after the show. They didn't show the Indiana Jones games that Machine's game is going to work on next. They didn't show Compulsion's game, their AAA third-person action adventure game that they have been working on ever since they wrapped up on We Happy Few. They didn't show anything that Coalition, the makers of Gears of War, what they're working on. There's a big rumor that they're working on both something that's not Gears and something that is Gears. So there's 2 more games they didn't show. They didn't show whatever In Exile is working on, which they've confirmed by their CEO saying that they're working on a next-gen AAA RPG. They didn't show Project Dragon, which is a game that they're rumored to be working on as an exclusive with IO Interactive, a rumor that came from the exact same source that said they're working with Avalanche on Project Typhoon, which came out to be true. So there's a lot more credibility to that Project Dragon rumor. They didn't show anything that has to do with Everwild. They didn't show anything that IDSoftware is working on, the people that made Doom. They didn't show Forza Motorsport, and they didn't show Tango, GameWorks' next game, the people that are making Ghostwire Tokyo, and they previously made Evil Within 2. And that's just what they didn't show. They didn't show enough things where, like, had they had shown the stuff that they didn't show, that on its own would be one of the biggest E3 shows you've ever seen. The fact that they were able to take their first party canon, take that huge chunk of it out, show us what was left, and for it to still be the best conference of E3 by far, there's no competition, and for it to be probably the best conference that Xbox has ever had, that is proof that Xbox has the biggest canon in the world. And that was E3, ladies and gentlemen. Before I go, I do have a couple questions. This was actually supposed to be, I should have mentioned this at the top, but this was supposed to be kind of a two-man show. There were just some scheduling conflicts, and my partner that was going to join me for this couldn't make it, unfortunately. But if you did want to know who that mystery partner was, it was my friend Keith, who will be on the first interview I do for Insert Coin. That's already recorded, so there's no conflicts that could possibly stop that from happening. That will be coming out in the next couple weeks, but I did have some questions that me and him are going to go through, so I'll just go through them myself. First question was, what was the biggest surprise of E3 for me? Biggest surprise easily was the Disney Sea of Thieves crossover with Pirates of the Caribbean coming to Sea of Thieves. So surprising, in fact, that I clipped that part out of my reaction stream on Twitch, and I upload that to YouTube so you can see my reaction if you want. I was pretty blown away. For some reason, even though it's like the perfect combination, like it's like a peanut butter and jelly moment, or as Cliff Bleszinski used to say in Gears of War, it's a chocolate peanut butter situation. I never put those two things together, and I never expected that to happen or even thought of it. And when I seen him in there, I was just like mind blown. Next question, favorite reveal. My favorite reveal was definitely Halo Infinite. I mean, I like, you know me by now. I'm a massive fan of Halo. I was kind of a little bit worried about the multiplayer, just like a lot of people were, I think. But what they did show, especially what they showed after E3 in the kind of multiplayer deep dive Vidoc, which I 100% recommend checking out, very, very reassured that this is going to be fantastic. And I'm dying to get into a flight or something. I need to play this game as soon as possible. Um, Next was my least favorite reveal. Least favorite was probably Far Cry. Nothing against Far Cry 6. It's just that I had already seen so much of it. I don't think it really needed to be here. And like I said before, I think this was some kind of marketing obligation that Xbox probably signed up for a long time ago when they signed for the marketing rights to Far Cry. And it was an obligation that was probably set in stone well before they planned out the show. So I understand why it was there. I don't think it really needed to be. Best looking trailer was definitely replaced. I've watched that at least twice every day since E3. The music, the art, the pixel art, it's just so cool. I can't believe that game is coming to Game Pass day one. Biggest absence for me, I would say it's a tie. I think the biggest absence is probably between Fable and Perfect Dark. I think those are tentpole franchises. I think that they're just not as far along as I thought. So it might make sense, honestly, why that wasn't there. So no, I'm going to change that answer. I'm going to say the biggest absence for me was probably Hellblade 2, where they revealed Hellblade 2 with the announcement of the Series X 2 years ago almost. I would really have thought that there would be something to show. And I think that from the franchises that we know that they have, I think that Hellblade and Senua are like their most likely answer to like Uncharted or The Last of Us or God of War. So I kind of expected Senua to be kind of a focal point of this generation for Xbox. So it's a little strange that there wasn't anything to show. That doesn't mean that that's not going to happen. And they did have kind of a diary that they showed afterwards with no gameplay or anything like that, but they did talk about how much the stakes have been raised for this release and all the work that they're doing, which was very, very reassuring. But still, I'm a little bit surprised to not see that here. Final question was, how would you rank this showcase against all of Xbox's previous showcases? Now, I'm saying this with kind of a recency bias, but I think this was the best one that they ever had. I can think of some other ones that had bigger individual moments. I think Keanu was a huge reveal. In Cyberpunk, I think that the announcement of MCC was crazy. I think that everybody was expecting a Halo 2 anniversary because of the release of Halo Combat Evolved anniversary. But for them to come out and have every single Halo in one package, that was very huge, as well as a Halo 5 reveal in the same E3. So those individual moments might have been bigger than any individual moment in this showcase. But the fact that they just was game after game after game after game, there was 3 times when a person came out to talk, and all 3 times everybody was just completely glued into them because it's Phil Spencer, Pete Hines, and Todd Howard, like 3 of the biggest names in video games. So there was none of that lull period where you have somebody coming out that you don't know, kind of talking about a game that you also don't know about. So that never happened. And literally, like, only 3 of the games that they showed were not coming to Game Pass day one. So it was a very crazy experience. So every single time something cool is revealed to you, which literally every trailer had something cool about it. Most trailers, I would argue, were very, very exciting to watch. Every single one of them, you feel like they're just giving you the games. Like you can actually go on your Xbox right now and pre-install most of the stuff that they showed, so you can see it on your Xbox. Like you own these games now. Like you can play. You don't have to pay anything. These games are just on your Game Pass subscription. So this was the first E3 where almost everything they showed was available day one on Game Pass, which was huge. And I expect that to set a trend for all of the E3s to come, because Xbox Game Pass is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's actually mind-blowing. When it launched and they announced what it was, I thought it was too good to be true. And literally every 6 months, it seems, since that day, it just gets better and better somehow, which is just absolutely insane. All right, and that's going to bring us to the end of this episode. I hope you enjoyed the E3 rundown and recap. I try to do most of this in one take, so I do apologize for any stuttering or anything like that. I'm trying to get better at not having to do a ton of editing, so I hope you liked it. I hope you liked the name change as well. Really kind of seeing how that goes. Hopefully it will allow some more people to stumble upon the podcast and more people to join the community, which would be great. Really appreciate everyone for tuning in. I'm going to be releasing the first episode of Insert Coin very soon. This episode of E3, the E3 recap, is coming out tomorrow, which will be Friday, and the first episode of Insert Coin is going to be coming out on Sunday. And then a week after that, there will be another episode featuring the interview with Keith. The first episode of Insert Coin is just an interview with myself. So hopefully you guys enjoy that. I'm in the middle of writing the Starfield trailer analysis, so I would really love it if you would check that out when it's released. Stay tuned on my socials, specifically Twitter, to find out when that's live. I'm really looking for some feedback on this one, because if you guys enjoy the Starfield content, it may end up becoming a really big part of the channel going forward. But that's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed E3 as much as I have. If you're not a Game Pass subscriber yet, I hope you sign up soon, because it's a huge deal. Anyways, I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks again. Have a good one.